If you had told me that this time last year I'd photograph whales, owls, badgers, eagles, and all the rest of these animals, I honestly would not have believed you, considering that my wildlife photos used to look like this. I wrongly used to think that wildlife photography was only for people with really expensive gear, years of experience, and a passport full of exotic locations. And while I think some of those things definitely help, I've also found that in this era, wildlife photography is more accessible than I ever thought possible. I spent the last year attempting to get more into wildlife photography, and the more time I've spent learning and experimenting and the more people I've met along the journey, the more I've realized that anyone with a basic camera and lens can start enjoying nature and wildlife in a respectful way. And with some patience and a little bit of luck, you can start shooting amazing pictures too. So if you've ever been curious but felt a little bit intimidated, this video is for you. Here are 5 things that I've learned that have really helped me in my wildlife photography journey, and hopefully they'll help you too. The first point is understanding the role that gear plays. Yes, a huge telephoto lens with a long reach is going to give you the opportunity to get shots that you otherwise couldn't get. And likewise with a higher end professional pro level body that can shoot higher FPS or has more advanced subject focusing, that's obviously going to help as well. But that doesn't mean that you can't get great shots with a regular zoom lens and a more affordable camera body. My friend shot these on a cheaper Fujifilm camera with this lens, which is like a sub £1,500 setup, I think. So you absolutely don't need to spend a budget of a car on a massive lens like this, though it would be nice if you could. And I've said this many times on this channel before, but the 200 to 600mm lens from Sony has been amazing for us, and you can get that for like under £1,000 now. Now I know some of you might be chatting, Aaron, this is still super expensive and we're in a cost of living crisis, but I've got much older friends who were doing this pre-2010s, and it really was genuinely harder to access wildlife capable gear. Like you only really had pro level super telephoto primes, and budget telephoto zooms were pretty rubbish by today's standards, plus older camera bodies had weaker high ISO performance and focus, etc. So the difference between pro and entry level gear really did matter more back then. The technical barrier for getting good results was much higher, which is much less so the case today. Oh god, this tree branch is really uncomfortable to sit on. But do you know what's not uncomfortable to sit on? Our sponsor, Flexispot. If you're anything like us, you probably spend hours editing photos or video after a long day out shooting wildlife. And sitting in a bad chair for that long can absolutely destroy your back, neck, and shoulders. Not to mention the long-term issues that you can develop with your posture. Enter the Flexispot Sentinel ergonomic chair. This ergo chair is designed for long editing sessions with adjustments to suit multiple body types and preferences. You have a 2-way automatic dual wing lumbar support that adjusts with your back, seat depth, and height adjustments, rotatable armrests with height adjustment, and the chair reclines from 90 to 130 degrees when you finally finish the edit and just want to lean back and play Pocopia. It even has a built-in footrest, which is perfect after a long day carrying cameras and lenses around in the field. So if you spend as much time editing as you do shooting, having a chair that actually supports is a must-have. If you're interested in picking up a Flexispot Sentinel for yourself, there's a link to their website in the description. Thanks again to Flexispot for sponsoring this video. My second point is to do the research. Now you could have the best camera and the best lens, but if you don't have some basic knowledge of the animals that you want to shoot, you'll never get shots as good as the person who does. It sounds really obvious, but you'd be surprised how many times I just went out and hoped for the best in the sort of early days that we were shooting wildlife, compared to now where I'm a lot more considered about where I'm going to go and when. Simply just reading up and finding out as much information as you possibly can make such a massive difference. For example, before attempting to get photos of a kingfisher, I watched a gazillion videos about them, learning about their behavior, their habitat. Shout out to A Shot of Wildlife YouTube channel. So when I actually went to photograph them, I had, that bank of knowledge so that I have somewhat of an idea of what to expect, versus if I hadn't done any of that research, I'd be going in like blind basically. Understanding the bird or animal gives you that much better perspective and allows you to put yourself in the best position, metaphorically and physically, of increasing your chances of getting the shot that you want. Point 3 is basically just to use the facilities that are around you. For example, hides, workshops, and photography tours. Now, before getting into wildlife photography, I didn't actually realize how many opportunities were all around me to see amazing animals and birds up close that would be really difficult to see on your own. I love using workshops and tours, for example, and using them as sort of like a learning experience, because it's like someone has done the hard part for you, and you just need to show up with your camera. Even if these involve semi-wild or even imprinted animals, they're still a fantastic way to learn more about a particular type of species, see them up close, and obviously get the chance to take great photos as well. We've also been on tours involving an expert taking you into areas with a particular type of species, and they're such a fantastic way to get that one-to-one experience learning from someone who can pass on their knowledge and expertise. There is 100% no chance in hell that we would have got this shot of a Longedale, for example, without the amazing guides at Elmley Nature Reserve. There are also lots of hides where you can see wild animals in a safe way for both you and the animal. For example, we went to a badger hide, and if you know anything about badgers, they're super elusive and very tricky to spot. Now, obviously you do need to pay for some of these, so I understand this won't be financially accessible to everyone, but there are also plenty of free hides, and here in the UK there are RSPB wildlife reserves all up and down the country. There are even places like in the New Forest, and even in major cities like London, you can see deer, you can see raptors, owls in places like Bushy and Richmond Park. So there's loads of free public places that you can go to, and you can also find lots of groups and communities who regularly do wildlife meetups and stuff. So these are also great opportunities to meet like-minded people. Now, just one thing I do want to mention is that there are some ethical debates about going to places like bird farms or hides that use bait. Now, I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong, but if you're interested in my personal view, I think that if it's not harming or disturbing the animal in any way and isn't altering their natural behaviour, then I'm generally okay with it. Just remember that the safety and well-being of the animal is always the priority and more important than any photo opportunity. So if you do find yourself having to question whether that's the case, then that probably tells you the answer you need to know. Okay, let's move on to our next point. So number 4 is just not to do it by yourself. So both Vera and I are introverts, so this one may sound a bit intimidating, and we get that we're quite lucky in that we're a husband and wife who can enjoy these things together, and not everyone has that luxury. But through all the places that we've been, you know, the tours, the nature reserves, the hides, etc., we've actually made a lot of friends and met really interesting people from all walks of life. And I tend to find that people who are into wildlife and into bird photography, for example, it sort of naturally attracts kind, nice people, at least in our experience. And going on like long walks, having photography days with like-minded people, for me, it's really made the hobby that little bit more enjoyable. And I know on the flip side of this, there are plenty of people who also love doing this alone as well. And that's totally fine. I love doing this by myself as well from time to time. But for me personally, even as an introvert, it's one of those things that I really love sharing with other people. Like when you're all out together and you finally spot that bird or animal that you've been looking for, and that feeling afterwards when you're at the coffee shop comparing the shots, it's just such an amazing, warm, fuzzy feeling. And like I mentioned previously, there are lots of local groups and societies that host regular meetups, so do make the most of those opportunities. And my final tip is a really simple one. It's just to practice, practice, and practice, and also don't let any failures discourage you. It's worth remembering that with wildlife, literally nothing is guaranteed. For example, we went all the way to Slovakia to see bears last summer. We spent all day hiking in the mountains looking for them with a guide, and the closest thing we saw was some bear poop and some scratchings on a tree. So you will 100% have days like this, but you have to remember we are going into their home, and it's a luxury just to be able to get close enough to these animals and a privilege to be able to take photos of them. They don't owe us anything, and we don't have any sort of divine right to see them. Keep putting yourself out there, and I promise you, with enough attempts, some patience, and a little bit of luck, you will get the shot you're looking for. And it's almost so much more satisfying when it's, you know, when it takes a bit of a while to get there compared to like just getting the shot straight away. And in terms of practice, like again, it sounds so obvious, but whenever you can, just go out there and get shooting. Bring your camera everywhere you go, even if you're just taking photos of pigeons. It's those hours that you put in there that are going to come up so clutch when you're actually out in the field with those more exciting species. So there you have it, 5 broad tips and things that really helped us when we were getting started. Now, both of us still feel like we're only really scratching the surface. We're far from experts, but it's been such an amazing journey with loads of highs, a few lows, but it's been such a rewarding experience overall. And bonus side effect, just being out most weekends and walking like 20,000 steps everywhere, lugging around heavy equipment. I've lost like 12 kilograms and got bigger biceps, so a win is a win. Anyways, let us know what tips you give to someone who's getting into wildlife photography. Thank you for watching if you did make it this far as well. If you have found this video helpful in any way, shape or form, then do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe. All that good stuff that YouTube algorithm likes. You can also follow us on Instagram if that's your thing. And as always, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.